In a world where technology is rewriting the rules at lightning speed, disruption is not coming. It's already here. The question is, are you ready? Welcome to Tech Week, your insider's guide to the digital revolution transforming business, policy, and innovation in the Philippines and beyond. I'm your host, Jack Madrid, and we are cutting through the noise to bring you the real stories shaping our future. We're talking to the risk takers, the game changers, and the architects of tomorrow, unfiltered and straight from the source. This is not just tech news. This is the roadmap to what's next. This is Tech Week, and this is how we decode the future. Outsourcing used to be just about cutting costs and boosting efficiency. But today, it's something far more complex and far more human. As AI transforms how we serve customers, BPOs face a new challenge. How do you scale at speed and still deliver the same kind of empathy, trust, and real connection that global customers crave? It is no longer just about call deflection or faster response times. It's about reimagining the entire outsourcing model from the ground up. Some players are still catching up, but others, like XtendOps, are leading the charge, blending AI, people, and process into a smarter, more agile future. And joining us today is someone who's been at the center of this shift. Sean McCreery is the founder and CEO of XtendOps, and he has been working across global markets to shape what the next generation of outsourcing really looks like. Sean, welcome to Tech Week.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Let us dive right in. Sean, what do you think many industry pundits are still missing about how AI is really reshaping the global ITBM market?
It's a good question. Like, what is actually happening versus what's being said? And there's a lot of marketing, out there right now. There's a lot of accusations and such of, what the AI is doing. But the reality is, it's not moving as quickly as everyone thinks from an implementation standpoint. You have to remember that a lot of the work that's done here in the Philippines is work that's actually deflected, right? So there's deflection of a lot of the volume already in place. Chatbots have been around for a long time. So I think the disruption in terms of AI, you're not going to see it necessarily right away here. I think there's another thing that's, really interesting, and I think the AI is also leveling the playing field quite a bit. And what I mean by that is, for the longest time, the largest BPOs sort of have controlled the market. And I think what AI is now doing, it's creating opportunities for companies like mine to come in and do something a little bit different, because I can be more agile, I can be more flexible. I'm not tied to the legacy business model in this space, which allows me to do what the customer wants me to do. And it also allows my employees to participate in this AI movement, which is really exciting.
I'm glad you mentioned that point about legacy, Sean, because I describe the ITBM BPO industry as an industry of problem solving. And that's all about processes, right? But I hear almost every day about company A, B, and C doing co-pilots, AI trials. But I feel that a lot of this is really throwing in an AI layer on legacy problems and problems that we're still processing in the same way. I mean, is there any truth to that?
I think what's interesting now is everyone's an AI company. Like I was at one of the largest contact center conferences a few weeks ago in Las Vegas, and every single company there had some flavor of AI. So I think it's really hard for just anyone in this industry to know, well, what is that AI solution? And more importantly, what results is it actually driving? Again, there's a lot of marketing out there. There's a lot of sort of positioning. So it's, what is actually the AI doing? Like, what are the results? And for me, I'm not seeing a lot of that right now, because I think everyone's sprinting to go to market to say, hey, I have an AI solution. And the reality is the value of the AI solution is something that I think we really need to take a harder look at. if you look at the legacy model, you look at a lot of the big BPOs, AI is very much going to disrupt their existing business model. One that was very headcount driven is now going to needs to become much more outcome driven. So are companies rolling out AI just for the sake of it, and it's more or less just like doing kind of what I call low value AI functions, or is it actually doing stuff that improves the experience for the customer? And to do something like that, you have to leverage automations, augmentation, where, to me, I think it really comes down to how the company is actually applying it, if that makes sense.
I really agree with that. It's really the business outcomes that are important, and what the new metrics are. What do we want to happen, right? Instead of just naming it AI and saying, yes, we're using AI, but the fundamental processes remain the same. So that's going to be a topic, I think, in the weeks to come. But I wanted to ask you next, Sean. In your view, what does a successful, future-ready, offshoring, outsourcing business model look like in this era of very rapid AI adoption?
Another good question. I think the optimal sort of outsourcing partner is one that's objective. And what I mean by that is you have both the tech and the people, and you're willing to use it in accordance to what the customer actually needs. So I think there's a lot of companies that have their agendas, right? The larger BPOs have their headcount-driven models, right? The tech companies want to push their tech solutions, right? But it really comes down to, what does the customer need? And what does that solution look like? And I take it even one step further. I think, in terms of actually implementing AI, I think we now live in a world where the collaboration aspect is more important than ever. I think for the longest time in this industry, you've had BPOs and you've had tech companies. And the models have actually been, they've sort of worked with one another quite nicely. You have the BPO, the services, right, which is the headcount model. And you have the tech companies with the SaaS model, and the headcount plugs into the SaaS, right? But now what's happened with AI is the tech companies coming after BPO volume, right? And that's what we hear in all the headlines and everything like that. The tech companies are going to take all the big BPOs out. But the reality is these two entities need to start working together if they actually want to deliver real outcomes with AI. So I think that's a conversation that I don't think is happening a lot, back to actually your first question. But to me, in terms of creating an optimal outsourcing solution, I think it's a partner that's objective, that has both the tech and the people. But also, even just looking, out, from a more macro standpoint, it's, the different partners that a client brings on. How do you make sure that they're all working together? Because ultimately what drives the outcomes is the feedback loop, right? The AI is great, but you need that personal touch. You need that context to go back into the model.
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop, absolutely.
So, Sean, aside from the Philippines, you have operations in Mexico and the Dominican Republic.
Yep.
Right? So my question is, around the world, outsourcing hubs are all racing to capture their own share of AI growth. Now, what other markets or regions do you see emerging as the early leaders in this transformation?
I think, it's really everywhere right now, to be very honest. In terms of what I've been doing on the AI front, I'll speak, from my personal experience. Our largest operations here in the Philippines, and I really, in terms of the Philippines operation and the people here, I think they've really taken on to the AI and wanting to get involved with it and buying into sort of this culture that we've created around sort of we have sort of this thing where it's like we have an AI first culture, right? It's like AI is here to stay. So what are we going to do about it now? We know it's going to disrupt things, but we can be in front of that. So we've been leaning into that heavily in Philippines. I would say the other countries that we operate in, I think there's a similar mentality. But I think really the opportunity for me, like in terms of CX, right? I think Philippines is the CX capital of the world, I'd say, right? So to me, strategically, I very much have prioritized Philippines in AI, but I very much have plans to roll this out on a global level. And I think, to me, if you want to have that AI culture, you really need to have everyone participate in it, right? Like, I sort of look at every country we have as like, they're all siblings, right? And you got to treat, all the kids equally. But I think in terms of what all the other companies are doing, I think it's very much the same, where they're probably looking at 1 or 2 locations, rolling that out, and then rolling it out more broadly to some of the other geos.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that PH is the CX capital of the world, because a lot of us believe that.
Yep.
And we just need to retain that renown. on I guess, our bedrock of empathy,
Yep.
which I think is the Filipino superpower. Now, humanizing AI has become a major theme globally. Now, how are companies integrating AI into CX without losing that human touch?
I mean, to me, it's being honest with your employees. I mean, just the other week, I was in our offices in Iloilo and Cebu, and I did roundtables with frontline agents. Just sat with them and talked to them about the AI. This is what the AI is. This is what we're doing. This is how it's going to impact you and your job. And to me, it's super exciting, right? But I think the first part is talking about it and getting everyone involved. When we first started doing a lot of the AI work, it was about 2 years ago. We went and we built a solution, and we sort of had this attitude, all right, we built this great thing, it's going to work, everyone's going to use it, right? You build it, they will come. And what we learned quickly is no one used it. We didn't get buy-in, we didn't get adoption because everyone wasn't part of it. We hadn't created that culture. So, we took a step back and we got everyone involved, right? And all of a sudden we started seeing people actually use it. But then the next question is, how do you scale it? And I think to me then it's a matter of you have to kind of rip everything down in terms of what is the current org structure today was not sort of put together with AI in mind, right? So what does the ideal org structure need to look like to train the AI to make it more effective, right? And then, you also need incentives to follow, right? So, hey, if I'm training the AI, me as an agent, I should be rewarded for that if I do a good job, right? And I should be compensated more if I deliver on those. So I think in terms of actual KPIs, I think those need to change. So I think everything sort of needs to be reimagined now because this is a game changer.
It's all about the process at the end of the day, right? I mean, you just can't slap AI on top of an old process or an old problem. So I had a quick question for you before we take our break, Sean. How did your agents in Iloilo and Cebu, how do they react to AI at the beginning? Were they afraid that their jobs would be disrupted?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They're terrified, right? And I think it also we were rolling it out when we first started doing it. We rolled it out with one of the accounts we've been working for a while, and we had really good agents on that account that did a really good job. And they're like, "Well, why should I change how I do what I do? I'm already great at it." Right? I'm like, look, if you do this, you'll get even better, right? But they didn't, there's a certain trust that needs to be built, right? And so we had to, and that sort of taught us, hey, we need to work with the people to really understand what needs to happen and what this needs to look like so that we gain adoption so that this tool is actually used. And that's what we did. And that's actually, for us, one of the metrics that we established is this AI assist score, right? And more or less is the AI driving improvement, or is it just kind of the people getting better? But we did different things like that based on the feedback that we got from our people. And I think that was really exciting. And I think that the power of the feedback loop is that we made a better product because we involved the people that were actually using the product, which is the people.
So it's not man versus machine. It is man with machine.
I think we will live in a very agent assist world moving forward. Absolutely.
So very interesting point, and we will continue that after a short break. Tech Week, we'll be right back. Please stay with us. And you're back on Tech Week. We continue our conversation with Sean McCreery. He is the founder and CEO of XtendOps. So Sean, let's get back. Looking across, with your varied experience across the world and global customer experience, how are BPOs navigating the different stages of AI implementation, and what best practices and lessons have you learned, and what has stood out to you on the world stage?
Yeah, I think there's different categories of BPOs, right? You have the big BPOs that really dominate most of the world, right now in terms of this industry, and what they're doing from an AI standpoint is I think they're sort of having to like really look hard at their current business model, the legacy business model of headcount. And I mean, you look at recent developments like TaskUs going private recently. I very much believe the reason that happened was, I mean, in order to innovate, a lot of these big companies are going to have to go private to do the right thing. I mean, if you look at their share prices from last year, they got absolutely trashed, right? And the downward kind of like spiral is continuing to happen this year. So I mean, I think the big companies have issues because shareholders have more say than customers right now. And I think that translates in terms of the pace of innovation and what it means for their actual customers. So I think I'm very interested to see what happens with TaskUs as they made that move going private and some of the innovation that they're going to be doing and what their next move is, because that was sort of the first big one I saw do something like that. I think the other category for me is the smaller BPOs, the boutique BPOs, which I think traditionally have had a little bit more trouble breaking into like the enterprise game. But I think the nice thing is that a lot of these companies are small enough, agile enough where they can kind of adapt and change, and they can take, bring on the technology and do things with customers that some of the big guys may not have the flexibility for. The challenge for the smaller guys, though, is that they're very much focused on making their country operations work. They don't have the infrastructure like the big companies. So what ends up happening is they don't necessarily focus on the technology. So a lot of these smaller guys are white labeling their technology. And I think, back to the point I was making earlier about being an objective partner. Well, if I have the people as my core business and I'm white labeling the tech, what is my preference going to be? It's always going to be back to the people. They're not all in on the tech, right? If you're white labeling that solution. So to me, I mean, not to plug XtendOps, but I think why I'm excited about it is because we have both the tech and people under one roof right now. And I think that's a trend that I'd like to see sort of continue in the industry for people that are really serious about implementing AI right now, because you really need both in order to have the right feedback loop and to really move at the pace that customers sort of expect you to move right now.
That's very interesting. I wanted to ask you as a follow-up question, on this point. Who has the upper hand then? Is it the tech companies who want to get into BPO, or is it BPOs who need to integrate and invest in tech? How will that play out?
Well, if you go on LinkedIn, like all the marketing there, it certainly seems like, the tech companies have the upper hand right now. But I think the thing you have to remember, right, is, what drives, the performance of AI, right? Fundamentally, it's the quality of data you have, right? Like that's fundamentally what it is. And when you look at BPO, right, the BPO agents are the ones that are actually generating the data that these models are trained on, right? Like, so BPOs actually control the data capture mechanism in people, right? We guide what data is being captured. And I think that's something that's not being talked enough about. I think that's incredibly important for successful implementation, is having the people in the loop, right? And, empowering them in different parts of that implementation process.
Another really important point, our 1.9 million digital Filipino workers, our agents, who are problem solvers, and I think they are experts with customer insights that they have been doing for decades across all these different processes and functions. How can we mine that better? Because that's a lot of insight there and expertise there.
I think there's a ton of opportunity for the workforce here, right? I mean, everyone talks about, all the the pressures on jobs and such here, but to me, I see a lot of opportunity, right? In terms of, I think, higher paying jobs, more skilled jobs, which frankly, I mean, you actually sit in a call center and you understand sort of the people in there and the very delicate ecosystem that it is. I mean, there's a lot of really hungry people there that want opportunity. And I think it's really on companies to really map out, hey, in order for us to do a successful AI implementation, how do we structure our company the right way? How do we create the right roles, the right departments to really enable that to happen? So I think there's really nice opportunities for a lot of the individuals here in terms of taking on more responsibility and guiding, where the AI goes. Because I think right now the technology's gotten to a point where really the individuals that have the context, that understand the business, which are the BPO employees, they actually guide how the tech's going to be created, right? I mean, and to me, it's I think we're in a new era where you can create these bespoke AI solutions for each customer, And sort of what I'm calling, it's not like services, it's not SaaS, it's SDS. It's this software delivered services model that's very much driven by the people.
Excellent. As my final question, Sean, I mean, if you were advising traditional outsourcing providers, regardless of where they are, what would be your best advice and what would be the top priorities, for successfully integrating and weaving AI into their operations and into their culture?
I think you got to meet people where they're at. And what I mean by that is, like, I think if you ask somebody what AI is or what it means for their business, everyone has different definitions of what that is and how it can impact their business. But when I say meet people where they're at, I mean every customer is a little bit different, right? What does their tech stack look like, right? What is their internal operation, right? What is the maturity of their outsourcing operations, right? Everyone's at different levels, and I think it's a matter of working with people and understanding their business instead of just telling them what to do out the gate. I think there's a period of time where there needs to be some learning, some understanding. And if you do that and you hear your customer, I think you best position everyone to be successful. But I think you don't need to artificially accelerate the process. You need to work at the pace that the customers want to, right? Meeting them where they're at. And I think that's really important. And again, I think that's why I think BPOs are in a position, because day one, we are part of that team. We are in the trenches with them. So we can move at that pace and we can make recommendations and we can harness these data insights to make our customers better at what they do. So I think BPOs have an opportunity to actually be more valuable than they've ever been in terms of helping people realize this new technology.
It's really an exciting world, and to see what really pans out from all that's going on, and it seems like every week something new, some new innovation is happening.
Yep.
So we'll have to talk about that when we have you on Tech Week next. But for now, that'll be a wrap for this week's Tech Week. A huge thank you to Sean McCreery for sharing your valuable insights.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
The future is being built right now, and conversations like these help us decode the future and what comes next. Join us again next week as we dive into another game-changing story shaping technology, business, and innovation. Until then, stay curious, stay bold, stay ahead. I'm Jack Madrid. You can catch BNC on Free TV Channel 31 and on Signal Channel 24. Thank you for watching BNC, the Billionario News Channel, always on top.